For the past year, David Napier has barely ventured beyond the front porch of his home in Western Sydney.
I have not left the house since last March, apart from medical appointments.
The 72-year-old has multiple health conditions that make him highly vulnerable to the coronavirus.
It has been a challenge, to say the least.
David's eagerly awaiting his COVID vaccination, which he's counting on to give him his life back.
It would make a tremendous difference to my life. It would mean we could be able to go out again, intermingle again.
Australia is set to roll out the first round of its vaccines this month, starting with 10 million doses of the Pfizer jab. Everyone who gets it will need 2 doses. Also in the pipeline is a deal for almost 54 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, most of it manufactured locally, and 51 million doses of another vaccine, Novavax. But some experts are questioning Australia's vaccine strategy, how well the nation's positioned with the vaccines on offer, and the rollout timetable.
I think Australia urgently needs to diversify our vaccine portfolio. We've done well to secure the Pfizer vaccine and the Novavax vaccine in particular, but we need to have more options in our portfolio.
We've not only got the wrong mix of vaccines, we've been very slow. We have had 0 people vaccinated in Australia. There have been 100 million people vaccinated in 64 countries around the world.
But others argue the national strategy has been a sensible one.
The Australian government started preparing for a vaccination strategy months ago, before we even knew that we would have a vaccine for coronavirus or a vaccine that would even work. And I think the strategy makes a lot of sense because it went for 4 different types of vaccines, which meant that we were spreading the risk.
In August, Australia inked its first vaccine deal with AstraZeneca, which was still in clinical trials. The Prime Minister announced CSL would manufacture that vaccine and one being developed by the University of Queensland if they passed clinical trials. In November, deals with Novavax and Pfizer were announced.
We have not put all our eggs in the one basket.
Just 1 month later, the University of Queensland and CSL were forced to abandon their vaccine after participants in the clinical trial returned false positive HIV results.
The 100-strong team of scientists are devastated. Their vaccine failed.
We've set March as our commencement date. I'll continue to provide that. But we are ahead of schedule.
In January, the EU implemented new export restrictions, giving it the power to block vaccine shipments to countries including Australia. That potential hold-up has raised concerns Australia's not secured the right mix of vaccine options.
I don't think we've managed negotiations for the vaccine all that well. We've got more than 50 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and most of that can be produced locally by CSL, which is good. But it's really the 4th best vaccine. It's only got a 70% efficacy rate. And we've got relatively few doses of the Pfizer vaccine, which is up at 95%, and none of the Moderna vaccine, which is at 94%. So I think we've really dropped the ball on getting the best vaccines by trying to sort of pinch pennies and pick and choose one from each category of vaccine rather than buying all the leading contenders.
The reason Australia needs to acquire high efficacy vaccines like the Moderna one is because they give us the best chance of not only preventing symptomatic infection, but also achieving herd immunity. If we don't achieve herd immunity, there's a risk that Australia will be dealing with COVID-19 outbreaks indefinitely.
The government has remained tight-lipped about negotiations for the vaccines. Last month, Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly was questioned about why Australia does not have a deal with vaccine maker Moderna.
Shouldn't we have a contract with Moderna in place now, given it's the other promising candidate?
It's a very promising candidate. David, I'd put it to you that a contract takes 2 parties to sign.
Were they not willing to share any of their supply with Australia?
We have continued conversations with Moderna, but it needs their agreement to sign such a contract. I'll leave it there. A lot of these issues are commercial in confidence and I can't really talk to them.
It's fair enough that commercial negotiations always need to be done a little bit in private, and that full transparency about that is, not realistic. But I think there hasn't been transparency about our strategy.
We also need some more information about how negotiations are progressing between the government and other medicines companies to diversify the supply of vaccines. Companies like Moderna, with a very successful mRNA vaccine that has a very high efficacy rate, Johnson & Johnson and many others. These questions remain unanswered.
The Health Minister Greg Hunt was not available for an interview with 730, but in a statement said it would be deeply concerning if the opposition sought to undermine confidence in vaccines supported by the Therapeutic Goods Administration and the Academy of Science. Adjunct Professor John Skerritt, who heads up the Therapeutic Goods Administration, is confident the nation will have enough vaccines to inoculate the whole population.
Australia is well covered, especially because for a country of our size, we actually will have a dynamic local manufacturing environment for the AstraZeneca vaccine, and of course we also have further commitments for Novavax vaccine.
There is broad agreement among experts that our ability to manufacture one vaccine locally is a distinct advantage and provides some security in the face of huge international demand.
There's a huge global market and competition now for vaccines, and a limited supply, as we're hearing about. The manufacturers are doing their best, making very large amounts, but there's just huge demand. So I think that balance of having some vaccines that we're purchasing and bringing in here from Pfizer and AstraZeneca, but the capability to manufacture vaccines really puts us in a different position. So having that capability locally will be very, very helpful, and I think that very much influenced the strategy.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.